makes me want to holler, go away. I need more peace and hope and love. Where do I find it in this crazy old world? I need strategies, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Every time I listen, Lauren and David share strategies for living, and it makes me aware. I got strategies for living, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio.
Oh, you know, we need them. Yeah, we do. We need those strategies for living. So are you ready? You ready for your daily dose of radio rehab?
I think I'm ready. I hope everybody else is.
I hope so too. Hey, folks, welcome. Welcome into another edition of Strategies for Living. I'm Dr. David McMillian. She is psychotherapist, PLPC Lauren Leon McMillian. And you know, Lauren, you said something to me a few days ago that is very intriguing, because most people, we were talking about boundaries.
Yep.
And most people think of boundaries as distant.
Right.
But you said...
Or separation, right?
Or separation.
Right.
But you were saying that the deeper reality is that boundaries are about connection.
Right. Well, yeah.
And at first, when you said it, I said, what? What?
Well, it came from actually, it came out of a session I had with a client where I kind of connected for the person that the more they were able to set boundaries, the freer they felt. But to expand upon that, right, boundaries, even though, like you said, we often think of them as these separators or dividers, actually, when we have in place good, healthy boundaries with ourselves and therefore others, it actually allows for deeper connections with ourselves and others.
So what you're saying is that boundaries create the conditions for real connection.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think that is a worthy topic today. I think that is a very worthy topic here on Strategies.
It's another one of those paradoxes that preclude truth, if you will.
I didn't know you were a doc. Well, anyway.
One of us is, anyway.
One of us is.
Not I.
Okay. We're going to talk. We're going to talk boundaries, and believe it or not, boundaries build connection. Thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate our sponsors who make it all possible. The Robinson Film Center, and Azalea Cleaners, and Pintail Roofing, and Learning RX. We train your brain. The Balanced Life Wellness Center, Fertitta's Delicatessen, home of The Godfather, Alligator Italian Sausage, pretty good Muffies too, SRT Sales Training, Uprising, Addiction Center, and Mira, Direct Primary Care. Boundaries. We think of them as separation, but they're really about connection. Talking about that today here on Strategies for Living.
Tune in daily, find the light. Healthy mind and spirits bright. Strategies for living strong. Feel the vibe, it won't go wrong. Body moves and soul align. Catch the rhythm, feel the time. Radio rehab every day. Chase those clouds of gray away. Your daily dose of radio rehab. Lift you up when skies seem dry. Mind and body, spirits free. Living life in harmony.
Welcome into Strategies for Living. Maybe a little surprise strategies today, because we're going to talk about boundaries. And, oftentimes we think of boundaries as separating us, something that separates us apart. And yet, Lauren and I were in a recent conversation where she connected for me that, wait a minute, well, boundaries are about connection.
Right.
And, the more I thought about it, the more I think you're right on target. You're onto something here.
I think so, And before we move too far, I want to kind of lay out a common definition of what a boundary is, because I think so often it's talked about so much now, it's become a bit of a psychobabble term,
Yeah,
right?
maybe heading there.
Well, and I think that a lot of times we confuse boundary with request.
Okay. All right.
And so one of my favorite definitions, I think it's Brene Brown, is the idea that a boundary is something that I say that I'm going to do that requires nothing else of the other person.
Okay.
Right? Which separates that from a request. We often think of a boundary sometimes as, well, if you don't stop that, then I'm going to need you to stop that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the real boundary is if you don't stop talking to me that way, well, then I'm going to
fill in
leave
the blank,
or hang up or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, fill in the blank.
Right.
It's something that I'm going to do that requires nothing else of the other person.
So one of the first things to consider is that boundaries actually remove resentment.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't set boundaries, you're saying yes, even though you may be screaming on the inside, no,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in that light, resentment is often a delayed expression of honesty.
Yeah.
It's something that you haven't said yet. And
but you want to say, you're just keeping it inside. You're packing it down.
Right. And so if I notice that irritation building, how can you get curious and say, where did I override myself?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because most resentment isn't actually about the other person, but it's actually about me not honoring my own limits.
Right.
Right? Because if I, from the get-go, was able to recognize my own needs and feelings and meet those, with a boundary saying, hey, that's all I can give for today, and I've got to go do this. That's the separation. That's what builds resentment if we override that, which so many of us are taught early on to do.
Sure.
Right?
And we're not taught to undo it. So over time, resentment is going to build and emotional debts are going to accumulate. And that's where the connection becomes strained, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, because if I'm able to recognize, and this takes practice, right? I mean, if you're one of those people who has a tendency to overgive to a point where the resentment builds, you're actually separating yourself and creating distance between you and another person, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you are able to begin the practice of recognizing when that tiny feeling of irritation builds, it's going to build until it gets to anger. And that inner fire, if you will, is a signal that says, hey, I need a boundary.
Yeah.
A boundary has been crossed and we need to course correct.
Right.
Right. So if you can recognize that, it's about honoring your own limits, and you can actually be able to stay connected to the other person without keeping score.
So when boundaries aren't planted, resentment is what's going to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're and as our friend Jay says, right, resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Yeah.
So again, we see that reflected that, okay, this is an internal issue. This is not actually an external issue between me and another person. It's about me being able to honor myself.
Yeah. A lot of times, I won't say most of the time, but a lot of time when people start talking about boundaries, they think about distance. Okay, I'm going to set a boundary. That means you're over there,
right.
I'm over here. But actually, boundaries don't necessarily create distance. They create safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And healthy relationships require safety. We've talked about this over and over and over, that to sustain a healthy relationship, the foundation of it has to be safe.
Yes.
You can't continue with intimacy and passion in any relationship without safety.
Well, and it's interesting because I think oftentimes we think if we're not used to them, the boundary itself can feel unsafe. But it's really not the boundary that feels unsafe. It's the unpredictability when there aren't any.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's that idea that clear is kind.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So when people know where they stand with me and I know where I stand with others, we can relax with each other and we can actually open up.
You can
and
be
more
yourselves.
vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And that creates that safety that you're talking about.
So boundaries communicate what's okay, what's not okay, and really kind of what to expect.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And it reduces that guesswork.
Yeah.
Right. Which is where a lot of disconnection begins to set in, right? Where I've got to start guessing or dancing on eggshells. That's where the safety starts losing its grip.
So boundaries creating safety, we're really talking about emotional safety. We're also talking about nervous system regulation, aren't we?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, because my nervous system is going to feel calmer in relationships where I don't have to brace or overextend, right? Where I know what's okay and what's not. I can relax.
Yeah.
Right?
And can we talk enough about trust in relationships? I mean, is it possible for us to talk enough about trust? I don't think so.
No. I mean, when I can trust that I'll be honest about my limits and you'll be honest, again, it fosters a space where we can meet each other even more deeply.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, because, people will totally relax when they know where the lines are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do want to mention that safety isn't always about being comfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, it's about knowing that we can be real with each other and still be okay.
Right.
So it's not always going to be a comfortable process, but it's about being able in the end know that I can be myself fully so that I can meet you at your fullest as well.
One day we showed up for school. I don't know. I must have been in the second grade. And some brilliant nun had decided, okay, girls on one side of the playground, boys on the other side of the playground. So we showed up, and there was this big line down the middle of the playground. And it didn't last long because the boys' side of the playground had only a pair of monkey bars on it. And I probably they thought, well, the little baseball diamonds over there. And so the boys go over there. But the girls got all the good stuff, Okay. They got both merry-go-rounds and the seesaws, the 3 seesaws and the climbing. They had everything, so it didn't,
not fair.
It wasn't fair. Plus, it was a harebrained idea. Sorry, sister. But so it lasted a day or two. But, I'll never forget showing up and just, what's this line? What's this line about? Yeah. Yeah, so clarity doesn't actually push people away. It helps people settle in. You relax when you know where the lines are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in my example, you might discuss where the lines are. That's okay.
Yeah. And it's important to be able to come to a place of compromise too.
Yeah. So boundaries allow you to show up authentically. If you stop and think about this, if there are no boundaries, then there's only performance because it's guesswork, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in relationships, we're all kind of guessing.
Well, and you're guessing and trying to predict what the other person wants or needs me to be.
Right.
Right. Which is not always, almost never, in alignment with who you truly are.
Yeah.
Right. And people pleasing is often just that connection without boundaries.
Yeah. So without boundaries, you overextend, and you can have a tendency to people please. You even shape shift in order to keep peace,
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not a very good feeling. But with boundaries, you can, and this is the point you were making a few minutes ago, you actually show up as your actual self,
Right.
your real self. And then, self to self to real self, then true connection, real connection
Right.
can happen. But real connection is only going to be happening between two people who are truly being authentically themselves.
Yeah, and in alignment with who they are, right? And I think it's worth mentioning that, again, that it starts within you,
Yes.
right? Because you've got to be able to recognize what are my needs and wants, and then speaking that into being and taking care of myself is what creates that boundary of safety for me to be more of who I am.
We all want to be deeply loved, but you can't be deeply loved if you're partially present, if
Right.
you're only partially there. So boundaries give you the opportunity to be fully there. We often think about boundaries as disconnect or distance, but boundaries are actually connection. We're talking about it today here on Strategies for Living, and we've got more to come. Stay with us.
We all have problems every day. We all need help along the way. We need strategies for living. Radio.
Yeah, we need them, and we got them. Glad you're here with us as we're talking about strategies for living. Today, we're talking about a topic that probably we could talk about every day and have a different show. And that's boundaries.
Yep.
Because, and yet the points you make, they are so over talked about, and maybe, over.
I'm getting concerned because I think what I've seen happen, at least on social media, and even with some of my clients, is that we're tending to swing the pendulum the other direction.
Yeah.
Where we're beginning to weaponize boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place to be.
No.
And that's not what boundaries are intended to be, right?
No, boundaries are about love.
Yep.
If you stop and think about it.
Yes.
And people say, what, boundaries, love, what? Well, boundaries teach others how to love you. People don't automatically know. I mean, you meet somebody, and whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship relationship, or a casual relationship of another kind, workplace relationship, people don't automatically know your needs.
Right.
And so if you don't set some boundaries, you're actually telling people, okay, well, just guess, because boundaries teach others how to love you. Boundaries are instruction, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, people can't meet my needs if they don't know that they even exist.
Right.
Right. So boundaries are how I make those needs visible.
Right.
Right. And I want to back up just a minute and note that others can't know or meet our needs if we don't know what our needs are or how to meet them ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so it's definitely not fair to expect someone else to just know.
Yep.
Right. Clarity is actually a form of care.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's this is how to treat me. This is what works for me.
Yep.
That's the instruction part of boundaries. And without them, people have to guess. And unfortunately, people are going to guess wrong a lot of the time, probably, right?
Right.
And get into patterns. And what do we know happens with patterns? Patterns repeat. And then all the stuff that we talked about earlier, the resentment and the anger builds. And, so boundaries are relational guidance. They're not rejection.
Right.
They're relational guidance.
Yeah, and I think perhaps some people can sometimes hear or see a boundary as controlling.
Yeah.
But it's less about controlling behavior, and I think it's more about expressing, okay, this is what allows me to actually stay open and connected.
Right.
Right.
So boundaries aren't walls.
Right.
Boundaries are directions. That's what boundaries are.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, when I communicate a boundary, I'm not rejecting the person either at all.
No,
right?
not at all.
I'm actually offering an invitation to them into a clearer way of relating to and with me.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
When you set a boundary, you're saying that's not going to work for me. And if the other person on the other end of the boundary is healthy and values the relationship, they may step back and say, whoa, okay, well, if I want to honor this person, how what's another way that I can relate with them that doesn't cross that line?
Right.
Right.
We've probably all through the years, if we've lived long enough, we have relationships where, perhaps we, didn't set a boundary, and then we did. Mm-hmm. And then that person disappears from our life. And we might scratch our head and think, what happened? Well, you put a boundary down, but you did it late in the process. Mm. Yeah. And so, it doesn't, if boundaries, if we can think of boundaries early in the relationship, again, and I love what we're talking about right now, thinking about them as directions, then from the beginning, we're going to give direction in terms of how to treat me, right?
Yeah. And I don't want to put people off because I to some degree, if you put them late, sometimes they can be detrimental. But I also believe that the right people, no matter how far into the relationship you are, the right people aren't going to feel pushed away by boundaries and clarity.
I think
they're
that's
actually going to feel guided and loved and supported.
Right. And, and maybe that has to do with the healthiness of both people in the relationship.
Yes, definitely.
And so, there are some times where relationships are important for us. It's important for us to have people in our lives for particular seasons. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we recognize that still, even if setting a boundary ends up in a relationship dissolving or separating in terms of the two people involved, I'm going to argue the boundary still creates connection.
Yep, absolutely.
Because one, is creating deeper connection with yourself.
Yep.
And two, it's making the way for a deeper connection with someone else who can honor and respect your boundaries and who you are and what you need and value in a relationship.
So boundaries make our yes meaningful. Mm-hmm. So how many times do I say yes? Yeah, it doesn't matter what somebody asks. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. And if you say yes to everything, then think about that. It's the supply and demand thing. There's an oversupply of yeses. So your yes loses value. If I remember economics and finance right, it's all about supply and demand, right?
Yeah. Well, and people can sense, right, when your yes is genuine versus when it's an obligation.
Yeah. And when we say yes to everything, then we begin to be obliged to do everything.
Right.
Try to meet everybody else's needs. So now it's not a choice. Mm-hmm. But if your yes is intentional, we've talked a little bit about intention lately. If your yes is intentional, then you are showing up. The real you is showing up. Yeah. And it's very genuine. Your presence is genuine in that relationship.
Yeah. So what you're saying is boundaries can actually protect the integrity of my yes.
Absolutely.
And they keep it from becoming diluted, right?
Absolutely.
Because when I choose something freely, like you said, I'm more present for it. I'm here.
I'm in there. I want to be here.
And what that does, again, is deepen the connection.
Right.
Right.
I'm all in. Right. And so a true yes can only exist when no is an option. Think about that. A true yes can only exist when no is an option. And, you know, when we think about it, no is always an option.
Absolutely.
Even, and, you know, people might say, well, what if I had a gun to my head?
Still an option.
It's still an option.
There will always be consequences.
There will always be consequences to you know, our decisions.
Right.
But
you always have free will.
You have free will.
Right.
No one can take that away from us.
Yeah.
That's part of what Viktor Frankl's wonderful book, Man's Search for Meaning, so eloquently illustrates.
Yes.
Yeah. Boundaries filter for healthy relationship. Now, you know, this is a big one, you know, because it's one that people resist.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on this briefly, but you know, it's important that boundaries. I think when people are in a relationship and they begin to recognize within themselves, oh, this is not a healthy relationship, and I really need to start setting some boundaries for myself in order to protect my being and to hopefully better the relationship, right?
Right.
And I think what happens is then all of a sudden people respond to that, and it can seem like boundaries are creating problems within the relationship, right?
Right.
But I'm going to argue they're not. They actually just reveal what's already there.
They just shine a light, because here's the deal. Healthy people are going to respect boundaries and understand them fully. Unhealthy dynamics are going to push back.
Right. And if a relationship can't tolerate a boundary, it was likely relying on my lack of one.
Yes.
So, you know, people who push back or have an issue with the boundary, what that reveals to you is that they were benefiting from your not having one.
Yeah. Boundaries aren't what ruin relationships. They reveal reality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. I've learned to pay attention to how someone responds to a boundary.
Absolutely.
Right? Because it says a lot.
Sometimes we think of, if I set a boundary, there's going to be a lot of arguing. There's going to be a lot of conflict, right? But actually, boundaries reduce conflict over the long term because, you know, all kinds of things can happen when we say, no, I don't think I can do that.
Well, you know? Avoiding a boundary doesn't eliminate conflict. It just delays it.
It delays it and maybe fuels it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because as we mentioned, it kind of begins to build up and boil and turn into a resentment.
Yeah,
right?
and we can do all kinds of unproductive things like passive aggression. You know, we're packing down and packing, and so when the blow up comes, it's a doozy.
Yeah. Because what we don't say clearly often comes out later with more emotion attached, right?
So think about boundaries as being on time. Boundaries address things early, and boundaries keep things clean.
Yes.
You know, they most of us want and need a clean environment around where we live or work, right? Well, that's what boundaries do, you know? So, yeah, setting a boundary could be some short-term discomfort for both parties or more.
Yep.
But what boundaries do is set up long-term peace.
Yeah, so it's about reminding yourself, however you can, that I'm going to try to choose the discomfort of honesty over the weight of avoidance.
Boundaries trade a hard moment now for a peaceful relationship later. We often think of boundaries as separators, as division, but they're really, when you stop and think about it, boundaries are about connection, healthy connection. We're talking about that today here on Strategies for Living. We've got more to talk about, more to come. Stay with us.
We all have problems every day. We all need help along the way. We need strategies Strategies for living radio.
Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Lauren, Leon McMillian, David McMillian. It occurs to me, Lauren, that there are people, just because of the way we listen to radio and, people who are getting a clip of what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is very important to all of us. It's boundaries, and boundaries aren't separation. They're actually connection. And if you miss some of what we're talking about, or you want to hear the entire show from beginning to end, well, it's an easy way to do that.
That's right. We're on podcast.
Yep.
Anywhere you listen to your podcast, whatever platform you prefer.
Whether
to
it's
use.
Apple or Spotify or iHeart or wherever you get it.
Wherever it is, look us up, Strategies for Living.
We'll be there. It's amazing. I was occasionally, I don't look at it every day, but I occasionally go and I look, and we have listeners in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last time I looked, that was one of the highest places.
I'm not quite sure I understand that.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Vietnam.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not quite sure that it's right, but if it is, thank you. All right. So we're talking today that maybe a way to think of boundaries that we don't usually think of them, and emotional burnout. We can get burned out. And so boundaries actually prevent that. They prevent emotional burnout.
Yeah, well, because when I say yes too often and I don't put a boundary down, I'm actually borrowing energy from my future self. And burnout often isn't really actually about doing too much. I think that's what we often think of it. Oh, I've done too much. I've expended too much energy.
Right.
I think of it a little differently. I think burnout is actually usually from doing too much that's not in alignment with who you are.
Okay.
Because if we are doing and acting from a place of this is what fuels me, this is what lights my fire of my soul, this excites me.
Yep.
Burnout is hard to come by.
Yeah.
Because we're always living from that place of this is what I want to create in the world, right?
If you overgive, if you give and give and give and give, you can become exhausted. You can become irritable, and you can just disappear.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed that when I don't set boundaries, I eventually have to pull away.
Yeah.
Right. Just in order to recover.
People might say, well, I need space. Well, that
You needed space earlier.
Yeah. That can really create confusion. So boundaries keep you from needing to disappear.
Yes.
Boundaries are not so much about you disappearing. They're actually keeping you from needing to disappear. Right.
Yeah. When boundaries let me stay engaged with life, right? Without needing to escape.
Right.
And when I do take that time, when I am resourced, I'm more patient, right? I'm
Absolutely.
more present, more connected, and that's good for everybody. That benefits everybody involved.
Boundaries build self-trust. How many times do we say
one.
The most important relationship that you will ever have is the relationship you have with yourself, the relationship you develop with yourself. Well, just like safety and trust is important in any relationship, begins with your self-trust.
Yep.
So boundaries, being willing and able to set boundaries, builds self-trust.
You often do your asterisk. Well, I'm going to double asterisk this one. For me, this is the big
biggie,
one,
huh?
Right. I mean, because every time.
Well, then I'll add an asterisk and we'll triple it.
All right. All in.
There you go.
Every time I ignore my own limit, I feel a subtle disconnect from myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so every time I honor it, there's a quiet sense of alignment.
Yeah.
And so it's that building, right? And it's not built in these big moments.
No, it's
right?
the small decisions,
Right.
the little decisions.
When you decide to listen to yourself and honor that.
So when you put down boundaries, you're building self-trust. You're also building self-worth. because you're reinforcing it. You're reinforcing, wait a minute, I'm worthy. My time is important.
Yes.
And I get to choose.
Right.
I get to choose how I spend my time and where I show up.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, when I keep showing up for myself in this safe, grounded, protected way, I'm going to feel more grounded in all of my relationships.
That's exactly right. And so if you build your own sense of self-trust, that's going to change how you relate to everybody.
Yes.
It's going to impact all your relationships, every single one of them.
Big time. I mean, because the more I trust myself, the less I need to rely on others to manage how I feel, because
Right.
I've got it contained within me. I'm going to take care of it.
Every boundary that you keep is a promise you make to yourself. So,
Yes. And it really goes back to, I keep hearing in all of these, right, a sort of sense of inner child work, right?
Yeah.
Because I think this so easily, this wound of boundarying, not knowing how or where to set boundary, starts when we're kids, right?
No doubt.
Because, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of ability to do that, and we rely on others so much for our own literal survival.
Right.
Right. And so what this learning how to set boundaries later in life actually is, it's you're listening to that younger part of you that had no sense of boundaries and didn't feel as protected. It's about coming to that younger part and saying, I've got us now.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yep.
this is what I'm going to do in order to maintain safety within our relationship together, and then all relationships beyond ourselves.
So boundaries allow closeness without losing yourself. And so without boundaries, it's not closeness, it's enmeshment.
Yep.
It's not connection, it's self-abandonment. And what we want is we want closeness, and we want each person to individually be their best and coexist. That's mature. That's mature love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, real intimacy isn't about merging, right? It's about being able to meet each other as the whole
As
individuals.
two whole individuals.
Right.
Right.
And we can't do that without boundaries.
Right. So real connection is not losing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Real connection is bringing yourself.
Yes. How can I show up in relationship as my full self?
How can I show up fully?
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's very, very interesting because we have this idea that boundaries are separating us.
Oh no, they couldn't be farther from the truth.
No, they actually lead to deeper relationships, closer relationships with ourselves and with others. Something to really consider here on Strategies for Living as we look at boundaries. Hope we've helped a little bit today. We'll be back. More strategies to come. And welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. We usually think about boundaries if we just think about it in the moment. Oh, that's disconnect. But it's just the opposite. What's your takeaway from what we talked about today?
Well, just that, right? That maybe the way that we've been thinking about boundaries isn't quite true. They're not what separate us, but what actually allows us to stay and be more present. Because when I'm honest with myself and others about what's real for me, my limits, my needs, my capacity, I'm no longer pulling away or building resentment. I'm actually here with you, right? And
Right.
so it's about being able to ask yourself, how can I show up more fully today or this week or this month? What limits do I need to place so that I can bring more of me
Absolutely.
into life and into relationships?
If you've been avoiding boundaries because you're afraid of losing connection, well, just consider, what if the version of connection you're protecting isn't actually sustainable? So, you can begin small. This week, maybe one honest boundary.
Yep.
Not to push somebody away, but to help both of you
Yes.
show up more fully.
And in safer relationships.
Right. Doesn't create distance, creates truth. Lauren, thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you. We appreciate you being a part of Strategies for Living. And we appreciate our sponsors making it all possible. The Robinson Film Center and Azalea Cleaners and Pintail Roofing and Learning RX. We train your brain. And the Balanced Life Wellness Center. Fertitta's Delicatessen, home of the Godfather, Alligator Italian Sausage, and some pretty good Muffies, too. SRT, Sales Training, Uprising, Addiction Center, and Mira, Direct Primary Care. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call to make, who would you call? And what would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Lauren Leon McMillian, I'm David McMillian. We'll see you next time right here on Strategies for Living.